Hello, my name is Steve Bostador, and I'm going to walk you through getting started with VNC Scan. This is going to be a really basic overview, as basic as I can make it. I don't want to bore you with details in just a getting started one. There's going to be lots of other videos that cover more in depth. But basically, I just want to walk you through setting up the first group and deploying VNC quickly to some workstations on your network. So, when you first start VNC Scan, you start with a default group, and that group basically is empty, doesn't have any properties set for it, and you've got to set a couple things in order to get going. One example of this is if I click on Scan Selected Group, it's going to tell me there's no computers in the group, obviously, and there's no range that's been set. You want to edit it, and yes, we're going to edit it. So I'm going to put an IP address range of my network here and scan for a few computers. I'm just going to scan the first 15 computers. So I'll go 192.168.3.1, 2.168.3.20. No, I'll go 15. Just to make it quick, I'm going to show you something here with threads. Threads is basically how many at a time do you want to scan, and you got to kind of be smart about this, because if you're on a slow network, then you don't want to set the threads too high. You're going to overwhelm your slow network. If you're on a fast network, go nuts. Put as many threads as your network can handle and your computer can handle. I think it maxes out at 10, but that's more than enough. And your timeout in milliseconds is how long until it gives up. So, and the port number here is the default port number for VNC, 5900. That's TCP. I'm going to show you something though. If I try to boost this up to 6 threads, and I've got 15 computers that I'm going to scan, and it's going to show an error here. But I also want to show you real quick. We want to register computers without VNC too, because this is our first time running it on our network, and not all of our computers have VNC on them. So I'm going to check that box too. These other ones we're going to leave blank for right now because they're outside the scope of what I'm trying to show you. So click OK, and here's the error that I was talking about. Your thread count is too high for the number of computers. I'm changing it to 3. What it does is some math to decide how to best divide these up into threads and keep the numbers even. So I choose OK, and it's changed it to 3. So now we can scan the selected group, and it's starting to scan. If we want to find more details about what it is that it's doing, click the More Info, and you can see which computers it's finding VNC on and what computers it's not. It says found VNC was false, found RDP is false. At the same time it's scanning for VNC, it's also scanning for RDP, which in other words is Windows Terminal Services. For Windows XP it's called RDP. Terminology depends on what operating system you're running it on. Same technology though. And it looks like it's just about wrapped up. It found 7 in that range. Some with VNC, some without. You can see in this column here where you can see the ones with false means it doesn't have VNC. The ones with true means it does. I'm going to pick that on the laptop here, and I'm going to deploy VNC to it. So I can get to that one of a few ways. Either I can click on it and then choose the deployment wizard, or I can click on it, right click, General Tools, Deploy VNC. Either way will bring you to the same thing. Now I've already created a profile called Ultra VNC, but I'm going to create a new one for the purpose of showing you how it works. A profile basically is saved settings. So because you don't want to answer all these questions every time you deploy VNC, that'd be extremely time consuming. So we'll make up a profile and call it temp. So that's our profile, and we're going to deploy Ultra VNC, so we'll keep it at Ultra. I really suggest sticking with Ultra VNC for use with VNC Scan. You could choose some of the other ones and it'll deploy them just fine, but some of the features, some of the really cool features aren't in the other ones. Are not in the other ones. So you'll want to stick with Ultra if you want the full features of VNC Scan. And choose a password. If you're using Microsoft Authentication, which will be a whole nother presentation that I'll give, you'll still need to enter a password in here. So no matter what you choose later on in this wizard, still put a password in here. And choose something good. And I'm putting in a quick little password here just because this is a test. And the VNC port and the Java port. Leave those the same unless you have another reason to change it. And this stuff we're going to leave alone. I'll come back and show you how this stuff works later on in another session. This stuff, same thing. We're going to leave it alone, and I'll show you how it works in another session. These are Ultra VNC specific settings. I'm going to click on the disable tray icon just because I want to demonstrate that real quick. That's the most popular feature for Ultra VNC for some reason, is to just get rid of that tray icon. So that's written into it. These other features we'll go over later. These also are even more advanced features that we'll go over later. And they all depend on things that you've answered earlier on in the wizard. So there, now you see a little black box that popped up. It creates the profile, and here we go. So now we have our new profile. And some of these settings are filled in. This already is filled in because of a previous deployment. I'm going to change this because this is not who I am anymore. I'm going to choose it to around the Boxtador domain, and the password is different for administrator. And then some of these other settings, it's telling you what computers are selected. If I wanted to, I can add more IP addresses or DNS host names to the list if I wanted. It's going to add it to the default group by default. If I had more than one group, I could just, select which group I want to actually add it to once it's finished. Refresh settings only. I only need to check that if VNC is already installed. The same flavor of VNC, by the way, is already installed on the remote computer, and I'm just wanting to push out the settings changes. I don't want to copy all the files. So do not copy start menu icons. Most people want VNC to be stealth on their network. They don't want to have a bunch of icons cluttering all over the desktop and the start menu of all of the end users and confusing them. So they keep the do not copy checked. So that's checked by default. And then deploy Ultra VNC video driver. This is checked because it noticed that you're deploying Ultra VNC, and you've got to deploy the video driver if you're deploying an Ultra VNC. It's amazing the performance gain that you get when you do that. So choose finish. Now let's go to open up the command window and run the script to deploy using the settings that you've chosen, the password that you've chosen. If you've chosen an alternate logon, it logs on as you, and then deploys VNC out to the computer. Now at the end of this script, you're going to see a couple error messages that I want to point out because I've gotten more than a couple questions about it, and I probably haven't done a very good job of making it very clear what it is. And it's about right up here where it stops and starts the VNC services on the remote computer in order to apply the settings. What it does is it sends two commands out to the server to stop. One is aimed at real, like Ultra VNC and the other VNC flavors, and one's aimed at real VNC 4. Instead of cluttering up the network, we're trying to find out what's running on the remote computer. It just issues them both out. One's failing, one's accomplishing what it's supposed to. And what you're seeing here is the error message from the one that doesn't exist. So, see where it says netstop wins VNC 4. We deployed Ultra VNC. So this is obviously going to fail. But where it says netstop win VNC, which is the real command for Ultra, that was successful. So just ignore this. If you see this error message, the short answer is just ignore it. It's not anything major. So we choose OK, and there we go. Now we have laptop 1. Double click on it, and here we go. We got put in the password I put into the wizard. And there it is. we've discovered that this person is playing a game. So the Act of War, it's a fun game. So here's the laptop that I just deployed VNC to. And as you can see down here in the task tray, there is no VNC icon down here, since we chose to keep it stealth. And there you go. So there we go. Now we have our list of computers, and we've deployed VNC to a laptop, and that concludes this webcast.